Stadium, and Blackman on the backstretch. Reed is there, and also Farquharson of Calabar. That's a tough form. Tyrese Taylor goes by Blackman on the backstretch. Here comes Tyrese Roden from Kingston College. He goes by Reed, and now challenging the man from Calabar, Farquharson. Now it's still Tyrese Taylor out in front with about 130 meters to go. And suddenly moving well. Here comes Tyrese Roden of Kingston College. It's a man from Calabar, Farquharson. All three are bunched together. Coming down the track is Farquharson, Tyrese Taylor, and Roden. Roden on the outside. Farquharson in between the two. Farquharson having a half-meter lead. Farquharson pulling away from Tyrese Taylor and Roden. It's Farquharson from Calabar. Stopping the trap. 148.68 seconds. And we have a new record! Oh my God!
Wow, what a time by Kimar Farquharson. 148.67, eclipsing a 32-year-old record of 148.84. What a race it was. Bubbling, bubbling. My blood was bubbling. And I think yours too, if you were at the stadium watching that race. And you may go on to think that he may become a world champion in the under 20 level. But that time, 148.67 in 2018 at the World Athletics Under 20 Championship would have been the 8th fastest going into the final, would not have garnered a medal. But it makes you excited. If you were there, you'd have been on your toes. And then you think further to say, oh, this young man could have, or can be, a world beater. In the long run, we don't know if that's going to happen. We have seen it a lot at champs throughout the years. Athletes from respective schools go on and dominate champs, but on the senior level, they tend to disappear. Sometimes I ask the question why. So I asked 3 persons. 1, track and field guru Leighton Levy, commentator, analyst, and a former athlete, and so he says, when he was attending Knox and beyond at CAST. Then Trishana McGowan, a broadcaster, a young lady who was also an excellent athlete. And then Donald Smith, a world-renowned commentator. Yes, world-renowned commentator. You hear him every day at the National Stadium. He was St. Catherine head boy back in his days. Did no sports at all. But let's hear what the 3 had to say.
There are several reasons why athletes don't matriculate from the high school level to the senior ranks. First of all, the biological side of it is that when athletes grow, a lot of their physiology changes with it, which means that things that they were probably good at relative to the environment that they were in as youth, they're not necessarily the same when they grow up. The second thing, and it's something that is largely overlooked, is a lot of them just lack the motivation. They just their ambition in many instances, especially in Jamaica, is to get a college degree and then move on in their lives. Track and field was just the conduit that they're using or the platform that they're using to move on. So those 2 things. The other thing is something that I had a discussion with a couple of sports scientists a few years ago. And it is that sometimes these athletes are overtraining at a level in their youth days, that their mitochondrial energy levels are almost depleted to the point where, as adults, they're not able to replicate some of the skill levels that they're able to do, at the senior level. So there are multiple reasons why athletes don't matriculate, and each of them, I think, have equal weight in terms of why they don't transition. It's lack of motivation. It was never their ambition, and of course the physiological elements of it.
So I think some of the reasons why athletes find it so difficult to transition out of high school, it's several reasons. You find that many persons love to talk about burnout, but burnout is more than just a physical aspect. So you have some athletes that get mentally burnout or mental fatigue that sometimes have a greater impact on the physical body itself, which hinder athletes from excelling beyond the high school level. And you also find that it's difficult to make the transition, which some people really don't want to admit. It can be difficult, it's challenging. And I think that you find that athletes coming out of high school and the transition period take sometimes up to 3 seasons, which people lack patience for, and they have to get over the aspect of injuries, getting adjusted to school if they're doing universities, along with training with one of the clubs here, along with going overseas and adjusting to food, the different type of food, the different environment, the different training strategies, and so many other things, which takes time. So I don't think it's any one thing like a lot of Jamaicans love to run with and say that you wanna burn them burnout. Yeah, them burnout in some people's opinion, but it's more than physical burnout. Those are some of the aspects. The others are they maybe lost love for it. They lost love for it, maybe due to injuries. The workload become too much for some to manage. And many lose interest maybe after the university college level because of different things. Whether it's to start a family, some having to find a job because every man and woman want to maybe assist their families back home. And sometimes going to some universities, they lack some things that, whether it be the coaches to take it to the higher level, the injuries to become a problem there on that level. So it's not any one thing. And, some do lose a love for it. And that's a different topic that many don't want to start talking about. They lose love for it. That you see it in our football, you see it in our boys playing well in the Manning and the Costa Cup, but then when they're to play maybe at the club level or other level, people say, yo, the ball there, they go on good there. So but you have this environment in the high schools that it's not sheltering, it's not shielding them away from what real life is.
I think that there are several factors that one would need to consider when looking at why some athletes have not transitioned or matriculated to the senior ranks, especially when they would have been dominant at the junior level. It could be for various reasons, including burnout. That's one factor. The support and resources that normally exist at, say, the high school level may not necessarily be so available when they move on to greener pastures or try to move to the senior rank, especially if they're not in a college setting. What you find is that those athletes who have gone on to college, they fare better in terms of having an opportunity to transition better into that senior rank from the junior level, as opposed to somebody who moves directly from high school to a club setting where you're somewhat expected to fend for yourself for the most part. So it varies. It varies right across the board. And if you look at the situation in Jamaica, save for athletes that are in the field events, most of the top schools at champs, especially on the boys' side, they don't readily have an athlete that you can point to say they have moved from the junior ranks, being so dominant, to the senior ranks. You probably can't find one. And some persons may say, for example, Omar McLeod, but he didn't start at KC, he was at Manchester High, so the burden that he would have had in 2 years at KC may not have been the same for an athlete that was that was at a prominent school from, say, first form right up to sixth form. So you have to look at it from that angle. Persons may then say, well, look at the field event, as I said, and that is why I kind of break it out. The field eventers, for the most part, are doing 2 events per year at champs, and as such, they may not necessarily have the same burden as the sprinters or the quarter milers. So it does vary. And at the end of the day, an athlete really has to push themselves to get to that next level. Usain Bolt said it well. You can't just believe that because you have the talent, you're going to automatically be able to be successful in the senior ranks. You have to put in the work.
Well, there you have it. You heard from Leighton, you heard from Trish, and you heard from Donald. And all giving you their reasons as why athletes don't matriculate, and some do. But guess what? I have my reasons. And my reasons are their reasons. Because it's not one reason for all athletes. Every athlete has their own story to tell. Every athlete has their own problem and own hurdles to clear. So all we can do is assist as they try to develop. And if they don't cuss them. And if they do, praise them. But always assist in trying to make them champions. That's Sean's law. What say you?